Hello, this is Professor Hazara, and your final exam. In your final exam, you have to do a valuation of a full valuation of Lilly. And what you're going to do is you're going to use Pfizer as a model. What I do in 5 videos, but they're going to be short. This is going to be the longest one. 5 videos where I'm going to do a full valuation of Pfizer, and then you'll do a valuation of Lilly. I'm going to get to it in a second. I chose Pfizer because even though it's not going to grow very fast, it's probably not a super growth company. I said that already. It's in the same industry as Lilly, so the financial statements should be somewhat similar to the financial statements that you have for Lilly. The two firms are both in the same industry, and they're both direct competitors. Okay, so in the last assignment, you had done a short form valuation of Lilly. You had used Pfizer. I keep using Pfizer as the example. And you had probably hopefully used this template here for Pfizer. I come with a share price of $100.09. I call it short form valuation. So what I'm going to do is in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I call setup. I'm going to do the setup of the initial setup of the evaluation. And this is the one that takes this. It's very important. And in the next video after this, I'm going to make the income statement, and then I'm going to make the balance sheet. Then a couple of videos to finish um, the um, the full valuation. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Okay, so this is where you finish your last assignment. You did short form valuation. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to insert a sheet here, a full sheet, to the right of the balance sheet and call that, and I'm not sure exactly if Lily's financial statements go in this order, but I'm going to ask you to put in a worksheet here. So insert full worksheet, and actually get rid of that one. I've just done that. Rename the worksheet. Rename the worksheet. We'll call this pro form evaluation. And in this assignment, this is actually sort of a combined version of, I think it's chapters 12 and 11 in your book, where you actually do some pro forma statements, and then you do evaluation at the bottom. So this is, in a sense, I'm showing you how to do that. I'm showing you with an actual company, though, the actual financial. So just call it pro forma evaluation, something like that. Okay, now here's what we're going to do. We're actually going to take the income statement and the balance sheet, and we're going to make pro forma. That means project. We're going to project them out 5 years, and we're going to use a model that's very similar to the short form valuation here. As a matter of fact, we're going to use part of this as the final part. We're going to use it sort of as a template for the final part of the pro forma valuation. The first thing we have to do is we have to take the income statement, project it out 5 years. This is going to be the super growth period, and then we're going to take the balance sheet and project that out 5 years, and then we'll calculate some free cash flows, and we'll do a terminal value. Okay, so I'm going to call this video, this is going to be set up. So the first thing you do is insert a sheet in there. Okay, the next thing that you should do is, this is going to be, we're going to assume that just like the short form valuation, it's a two-stage model. The company grows for 5 years, in this case, at the super duper rate of 3.7%, and then it goes into a terminal growth phase when it goes at 1%. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use, it's basically the same valuation as a short form valuation, but using the full financial statements. And at the end, I hope to show you why we do this. This is not going to make you an expert financial analyst, but I'll show you why a short form valuation is just not good enough. It's good for a quick calculation, but not for not if you're doing this really seriously and want to really dig into the details of the company. Okay, so we have this right here. Okay, for the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead. You'll see I'm just going to go ahead and just to emphasize that we'll use the same assumptions. I'm going to take these inputs that we had for short form valuation, and I'm just going to bring them over here for, you could call it a long form valuation, for the pro forma valuation. Okay, so I'll put those in. Okay, now the difference between the short form and long form, and this is not a full long form, by the way. If we did, I'm not going to do a full statement of cash flows. We're just going to compute free cash flows directly from the income statement and the balance sheet. But you're going to see the good part of it. Okay, so it's the same type of thing, but we're looking at more detail in a sense. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pro forma the income statement, and we're going to pro forma the balance sheet. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up. I'm going to bring over both statements, and I'll start the pro forma of the income statement because there's a couple of very important things you have to know. Okay, so what I want you to do then is we'll go over these statements are for, I may be a year behind just because these companies are just coming out with their financial statements. They probably came out with them in March. But so we started the semester with last year's financial statements, and we're going to end it with 1 year behind. But that's just the way the timing of these things. It's okay. You still learn the lessons. Okay, here are the income statements. And what we're going to do is use 2019 as our base year. And by base year, I mean it's going to be the year that we sort of use as the foundation for building the future projections. Okay, so let's bring over the income statement first. So you've already seen this when you calculate the ratios for Lilly, but you've seen the Pfizer ratios. And this, you remember we started the course by downloading Pfizer's financial statements. Okay, so go ahead and we're going to copy. What we're going to do is copy. We can't copy these dates because these cells here are merged, so that makes things kind of rough. But we'll copy where it says income statement, and you can do the same thing for Pfizer. Now, keep in mind that every company is different, but I'm trying to choose companies that are the same, or at least similar, same industry. Okay, so take this part right here, all the way through weighted average shares diluted. Okay, basically the bottom of the income statement. These are my own numbers down here. This big $2.92. I think that's part of a lecture I did. What we're going to do is we're going to copy those. We're going to copy these over to the pro forma financial statements. Give yourself a little space there. That's good enough. And there's going to be your base year income statement. Okay, and here, do the following. Once you get the income statement, first of all, make sure you have all the lines. And it looks like you have all the lines, okay? And then, I mean, read it. Here's your revenues. Here's less your costs and expenses. It gives you income from operations. You got your taxes. It gives you basically your net income. There's a couple of minor things down here. Discontinued operations. Notice it's $4 million, and if you're talking, revenue of 51 billion, 4 million is immaterial, believe it or not. Okay, so anyway, so that's their net income. This means that they discontinued some operation. I think there was a joint venture that Pfizer was in, and they sold their share in it, so they discontinued that in a sense. So notice there's a $4 difference between these two, and of course in millions, obviously. And then this is something you're going to see probably also in Lilly's financial statements, where it says net income attributable to non-controlling interest. What that is, and I'll try to explain it. If not, well, that's just notice that I'm going to be using net income attributable to Pfizer, and you'll use net income attributable to Lilly. What this is that when a company, such as Pfizer in this case, goes out and buys other companies, if they buy more than 50% of the voting shares, they control the other company. Now, the shareholders that own the other 40% or whatever, or 10%, if Pfizer buys 90% of the other company, then the non-controlling shareholders own 10%. This is those shareholders' interest in the net income of the other company. So it looks in this case like Pfizer owns the vast majority of stocks in companies it controls. Because remember that 51% of stock gets you control. So you could actually have by 51% of the shares of voting shares in another company, and 49% is owned by somebody else. So, but it looks to here like Pfizer owns the vast majority of shares. Why do I know that? Because only 29 million, I guess that is, out of 16 billion net income belongs to other people. That means that Pfizer owns the vast majority of shares, probably 99%. Just take 29 over 16,302. Okay, so the number, the net income number we're going to be working with is that number right there. Okay, so do the following. Once you've got the income statement done, put dollars here. Just put a dollar sign there. Oh, wait a minute. Instead of doing that, put the date here. Put, in this case, 12/31/19. Let's start with the dates here. Put the date there. And then move this entire column, over one column there. Okay, and so we've got sort of an empty column here. In that column, just put a percentage sign, because we're going to base, and this is, if you read chapter, I think it's 10 or 11 on pro forma financial statements. If you read the chapter, you'll see that pro forma financial statements, at least the initial version of a set of pro forma financial statements, is you base everything on a percentage of sales. So we're going to assume in this case that, and this is unrealistic, but it's at least the initial version, we're going to assume that all our costs and expenses over the next 5 years are going to maintain the same relationship to sales as they did in 2019. Okay, and what you do is you build your initial set of financial statements, and then you start seeing where the company is going, and then you make adjustments. But that's for another time. Okay, so anyway, so we have that right there, and let's go ahead and do the same thing with the balance sheet. So let's go ahead just to get the balance sheet here. So we have balance sheet here, so we'll have our balance sheet because we're going to pro forma both the income statement and the balance sheet. Okay, and let's go over here to the balance sheet and see what we have. We have, we'll do 2019 again, and we will do this. We will bring over 2019 over to the pro forma, and just give yourself a couple of rows there. You want to give yourself a little bit more. In my experience, more space is always better. And of course, notice once again that that we're going to take numbers, the balance sheet counts, and it looks like we got everything there. We got equity. It looks like we got total liabilities and equity. You just need to widen that column there, and we're just gonna cut them and bring them over one space. We're going to say this is 12/31. 12/31/19, and we'll put percentage here too, because we're also going to assume that certain assets, especially current assets and liabilities, are a percentage of sales. And that kind of sort of standard practice. Makes sense. Okay, so far we've copied over our income statement, which we're going to pro forma out. We're copy the balance sheet over. In this particular video, I'm just going to go ahead and do the setup here. Okay, the next thing is we've got to establish the dates for the years that we're going to pro forma. Okay, so next one is going to be 12/31/20. Obviously, we're a year behind because 21, 12/31/22, 12/31/23. Wow, how time flies. 12/31/23, 12/31/24, and 12/31/25. Obviously, we're a year behind here. Even if you're looking at a year later for Lily, it doesn't matter as long as you get the general idea of this. Okay, so those are the years that we're going to be we say pro forma financial statements. We're pro forma financial statements here. That means forecasting. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and copy these, and I'm going to copy them paste special them as values just to make sure that they stay as values. So I could have just pressed that one. Okay, so they come down here. Try that again. Should be paste special. I thought I hit values here. Go ahead. If not, we'll just continue and do that in the next video. Paste special values. Oh. Let's go ahead and okay, so we got the years there right there. Okay, so I'm almost finished with this video. So far what I've done is I took all these inputs from the short form valuation, copied the income statement over, and I copied the balance sheet over. I'm really preparing the rest of this. And now I'm going to do 3 more things to finish this particular video here. This is the setup. Okay, and I'm going to set up the income statement first, and then we get to the balance sheet. I'll set up the balance sheet. Okay, so the next step is in this percentage column is we're going to assume that most of the costs or all the costs are going to be the same percentage of sales throughout the 5 years that we forecast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, first of all, I'm going to divide sales by itself. That gives you 1, which is obviously 100%. And let's change that to, I want to make this a percentage, and you don't have to put That's 100%. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze the denominator. Make sure to get those in. I'm going to give you a copy of the sheet, obviously. What I'm going to do is just copy that number down to all the numbers on the income statement. And you don't have to go into earnings per share. Just take it down to net income attributable to Pfizer, in your case, attributable to Lilly. Okay, and in essence, here's what we're saying. We're saying that revenues are 100% of themselves. Cost of sales is 20% of the revenues. And here's one reason why I'm giving a pharmaceutical compared to Lilly, because apparently, if you know, usually income statements in most industries will give you a gross profit subtotal right there. However, in this case, they don't give you a subtotal for gross profit, so just go with it. That's just industry practice. You have to be able to adapt to the different circumstances that different financial statements provide you. Okay, so anyway, but you can see that obviously if the revenues are 100%, cost of sales goods sold are 20%, have an 80% gross profit margin. So they're going to have, if you have a high gross profit margin, you're going to have a high free cash flow. That's how they pay their dividends, by having 80% gross margins on, they're making 80 cents on every dollar of sales. Okay, which is huge, absolutely huge. And so this is a slow growth, high dividend paying company, obviously. You just look at the slow growth, high dividends they're going to pay and their free cash flow, their margin. Okay, here's the last thing I'm going to do now. I'm going to do two more things, actually, basically the same thing. Is I'm going to actually start the income statement. And I'm going to start the income statement. Now, I'm going to first of all start the revenue line. And the revenue line is kind of my anchor for everything else in the income statement and the balance sheet that I'm going to do in the forecasted statements. So I'm going to assume, I'm going to forecast these things out. I'm going to grow this 51,750 at 3.7%. Now I'm going to assume after that every one of these expenses here is going to be, throughout the next 5 years, same percentage of sales as they were in 2019. Obviously, that could change, but you can, once you get your basic statements, and then you start making the changes. Just doing the basic statements. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grow the sales at 3.7%. So the formula that you're going to use here is you're going to take the sales of whatever year and you're going to multiply it. Let's do this for a second. And take the sales for any year and I'm going to multiply it, now open parentheses, times 1 plus the growth rate. We're going to assume that it grows at 3.7% every year. That's obviously not a super growth rate, but I'm just giving you these statements so the format is similar to Lilly's. Okay, so it's going to be 53 billion the year after that. Now, let's just go ahead and paste this thing. Now, the only thing you have to do is freeze that growth rate. So looking at that, freeze that growth rate at 3.7%, and then you just go ahead and copy this. Copy the 2020 sales out here. So this is going to grow from a $51 billion company to a $62 billion company. When you think about it, that's a lot of money. It's not growing terribly fast, but it's growing. Okay, so I'm almost finished here. Let's go ahead and I guess we're going to format these dollars here. These are all dollars. Okay, and so we'll format cells here, and we'll do currency, we'll do dollars. Let's just keep it simple. And we know it's in millions, so we know this is $53 billion in 2020. Okay, so that looks good so far. It looks like it's growing, and I just want to check here. Okay, that's good. Okay, now we're going to take out all these costs and expenses, and keep in mind that for some reason or other, pharmaceutical companies, they apparently don't like to have a separate subtotal for cost of goods sold, which can be a problem, but we'll show you. Okay, now the final thing I show you here is going to be probably one of the most important things that I'm going to show you, and it's going to make the valuation, the forecasting, and the pro forma of the financial statements it's going to facilitate everything. I'm going to call this the base formula. Now, what I mean by the base formula, and I'll talk more about it in the next video, is I'm going to come up with a formula that I'm going to be able to take for any line item, for any of the line items which I'm going to make, for which I'm going to make the assumption that the percentage of sales is constant. So I'm going to assume that cost of sales are 20% for all these years. I'm going to make this a formula such that once you make the formula for cost of sales, rather than having to make the formula, for every one of these line items here, once you make the formula once, all you've got to do is take that line and copy it down to any other line item for which you're going to assume a percentage is constant, and that's going to be a lot of the process. But you've got to make what I call a base formula first. And here is how this is going to work. Let's see here. Okay, so what we're going to do, and if I don't get it here, I'll stop the video and I'll just start the next video with it because I'm going to do the income statement anyway. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to assume that for every year going out, that cost of sales is 20% of sales. So obviously, cost of sales is also going to be 20% of sales, and also increase at 3.7%. Because if you're taking the percentage of the same percentage of a growing item, that you're going to grow that item at the same item you're taking that you're using as your base number. Okay, so if we take, let's see if we do this right here. I always get this mixed up. You take revenues here and multiply it times that 20%. So that gives you, obviously, that's 20%. So this will have grown at 3.7%, the cost of sales. Now what we want to do is we want a formula that you can take out, just copy, that you're able to copy across, and you'll get the correct numbers that for every year you're going to cost of sales, which is 20% of sales, and also that you want to be able to take this formula and then copy it down any other item for which you're going to assume the relationship between sales and that item remains at the same percentage as it was in 2019. Okay, so if I recall, look at this formula here. Look what I'm doing. I'm taking 53,665 times 20%. If I put a dollar sign there and a dollar sign there, and then look at what I did. I want you to concentrate on where I put the dollar signs in front of the row for the revenue for the first term, and the second term is B16 in front of the letter for the percentage. And then I'm going to copy this over and see if this works out here. It looks like it did. Okay, so what we're assuming there, so all I had to do was copy across, and I want to be able to copy the formula which I can then copy across for, or more importantly, as you're going to see in the next video, for which I can copy down for. So instead of having to make the same formula, these are long statements, maybe 35 times. All you're going to have to do for any item that is a separate line item for which you're going to assume that remains constant at 20% of the case over 5 years, you just take the base formula and copy it. You get the whole line. Okay, let's just see if it worked. So if we take this, 2,000, 20%, 20. Okay, so the formula seems to have worked. Every one of these numbers for cost of goods sold for the forecasted years is 20% of sales, and this is where I'm going to stop. And what I'm going to do in the next video, which is going to be very fast, by the way, I'm going to make the income statement. I'm going to fill in the numbers going down here. The income statement, you say, well, that looks long. It's not. If we've established this formula, then all you've got to do is we're just going to be copying for certain items formula. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and so these are the first steps you should do in setting up financial statements. Bring over the income statement, bring over the balance sheet, bring over the assumptions from the short form valuation, which are up here. Set up your years, set up your percentages, and then grow the sales out, and make sure to freeze that growth rate there. Notice they're all aimed at 3.7%. Grow the sales out at whatever growth rate you have. And then using this base formula, and these dollar signs are important, go ahead and establish that base formula and copy your first line item across using it. In the next video, we're actually using it to copy down. Next video is going to be short, I think. Okay, anyway, thank you very much, and I'll put this up.